Hello, Red Wave. Welcome to Bulldogs podcast. Caleb and Caleb are back, and we are getting to know the Arizona State Sun Devils. Joining us is a new friend of ours, Richie Bradshaw from Locked On Sun Devils. He talks Sun Devil football, sports in general, I believe, every day. Richie, did I get that right?
Yep, Monday through Friday, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Wow, that is impressive, man. As I move the Beware Bulldog sign out of your way, tell us all about the Locked On Network and what exactly are you talking about? Are you talking about football, basketball? You cover it all. What exactly do you do and where people can find you?
Yeah, so with the Locked On Podcast Network, what they pride themselves off of is having daily podcasts Monday through Friday. It's not necessarily an hour long. They typically shoot between 20 to 30 minutes. If you have like good interviews, obviously they're here for it. But that's one of the things that we're really proud of ourselves with is that we give you the daily content so that you're constantly caught up. So if something happens on Tuesday, you don't have to wait until Friday because we're going to cover it on Tuesday or Wednesday if it happens really late. So with me covering the Sun Devils, I am mainly focused with football and basketball, but I try to stay up to date with everything that's going on, the volleyball team, baseball and softball. If something big is happening with women's basketball or gymnastics or anything like that, I try to keep in the loop with all the athletics, but there's definitely a bigger focus on college hoops and for college basketball. But bottom line, yeah, I just do my best to stay in touch with everything. If there's any rogue Sun Devil fans that are listening to this podcast right now, you can always find me on Twitter/X at Richie Brads with a Z36 and the podcast at LO_Sun Devils for the best Sun Devils content in the whole wide world.
Beautiful. Well, Richie, again, thank you for joining us. Before we talk football, though, there's a big change coming to Arizona State, and that's you guys are moving conferences. As far as I know, that's what I've been told. What's your whole opinion on this whole thing that's going on within the Pac-2 now?
I'll start with this. It's really unfortunate that it got to this point because you had everything that happened with Larry Scott doing his best to sabotage the conference, and he hands George Kliavkoff a live grenade and says, "You fix it." And I think that Kliavkoff did as much as he could, but it also was just a situation that was going to fail. And the moment that the LA schools, the USC and UCLA, decided to leave the conference for the Big Ten, it felt like it was just a ticking time bomb for the rest of the conference to depart. You see Oregon and Washington go to the Big Ten as well. And then the four corner schools, Arizona State, Arizona, Utah, and Colorado, decide to go to the Big 12. Now you have Oregon State and Wazoo are the only two teams left, and they've just filed for some kind of like order of protection sort of thing against the Pac-12. Like it's a whole mess that's going on. But as much as it stinks to leave the Conference of Champions and a conference that has been home to the Sun Devils for over 40 years and has treated us very well. We had a Rose Bowl win. We've had an appearance on top of that. We've just really enjoyed success in that conference. But at the end of the day, and unfortunately, as we all know, a lot of what's going on in college football is money driven right now. And if you're not going to have a consistent revenue stream when it comes to your media rights, which the Pac-12 didn't have, you're just going to lose out. And I know that there's speculation that the Pac-12 and the Mountain Western Conference could look at a merger, but ultimately the end of the conference was always going to happen just with everything that's going on. For Arizona State, I feel like this is a very good thing because I look at the ability to start recruiting in the Midwest, and this opens up Texas for you, and it opens up, Southern Louisiana, where some of the kids will be paying attention when you go to Houston and stuff like that. You have the Midwest, Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, more of New Mexico. I don't know if there's necessarily like 5 stars there, but it still provides you opportunity to really market yourself outside of the Pacific because, California is close enough that you can still do some work there, but you needed help with the middle of the country, and especially in Texas. And we're already starting to see that effect start to roll in for us with the recruits, and we've got hashtag Texas to Tempe going on. So there's all sorts of benefits for us that are moving forward. From a nostalgia standpoint, it totally stinks. But from the reality that we have to live in, it's for the best.
Right. Yeah. You definitely wouldn't want to be the two left behind. So yeah, I'm sure gladly there's some relief there that
Yes.
the Big 12 was an option.
Absolutely.
So you guys are 1-1 right now on the football field. What's the overall feeling in Tempe right now? Let's look at the fan. Let's start with the fan base first. What's the overall feeling?
Unfortunately, when it comes to Arizona sports as a whole, not even just Arizona State, and I know that this is a very unpopular opinion, but it's the truth. It's very fair weather fans down here. When things are going good, they're going great, and you're the hottest ticket in town. But when things aren't going good, no one's going to show up and nobody cares. It's that way for professional teams, and it's that way for Arizona State. We have seen those stadiums sell out in the height of like the Todd Graham era where they had back-to-back 10-win seasons. That was the hottest ticket in town. But over the last handful of years, it's really difficult to sell out that stadium. And when you guys are at the stadium, you will see empty stands, and it's embarrassing. But the reality of the situation is that you have a new regime that's coming in now with Kenny Dillingham, the former offensive coordinator at Oregon, who's coming down to Arizona State, and he has been focusing on another hashtag, Activate the Valley. And what he wants to do is get everybody in what we call the Valley, which is like every city that is surrounding Phoenix. It's just called the Valley. He wants all those places to rally together to support this football team and support the university the way that we haven't seen consistently before. So in the midst of all this is a big rebuild that's going on. And you had the athletic director, Ray Anderson, decide to hand down some self-imposed bowl bans, which has really hurt the morale, not only of the team, but of the fans as well. So it's been really difficult to get everyone to get all in on this team. And through 2 games, you were barely beating Southern Utah, but there was also a 2.5-hour weather delay for a dust storm that rolled in. You're trying to figure that out. And then you have the Oklahoma State game where you're leading at halftime, and it felt like you were possibly going to win this game, but then everything kind of falls off the rails and they get shut out in the second half, and fans are frustrated. And there we go. Where was I? Fans get frustrated. They don't want to go to the games. It's just a big old mess. So it's just the reality of Arizona sports, unfortunately, is like, it's so hard to get people to consistently buy in. Right now, Kenny Dillingham is just trying to sell everybody on this team. It's going to be a process, but for the 3rd game in the year, I really just don't expect much from the fan base at this point, but I would love to be proven wrong.
Yeah, I think especially in a city like Phoenix where there's a lot of other attractions basically all the time, it's got to be tough to have the local collegiate sporting events be a big ticket item. So yeah, it's definitely a challenge. So would you say that a lot of Arizona State alumni stay in the area after graduation? Because I mean, I know that it's a school that pulls students from all over the country just because they want the warm weather, they want to have fun. It is a very good school too. So would you say that there's like still a core of alumni that stay in the area, or they're mostly spread out just generally?
I think it just kind of depends on like what you're going to the school for, because we have all sorts of different programs that we offer. They're really starting to get into a nursing program that is starting to become more and more well received. They have the very famous Walter Cronkite sports journalism school, which that has pumped out some very impressive people like Al Michaels and Matthew Berry of ESPN, to name just the 2 biggest off the top of my head, and then obviously Walter Cronkite. But they have been able to really establish some very good schooling inside of the university, and that's a great credit to the university president Michael Crow, who has definitely put an emphasis on becoming a better academic school. as well as everything else. So there's definitely been that emphasis to get to that point. But I've talked to so many people that come here from across the country, people who come from the East Coast, people who come from way up north, people who are coming from the Midwest, and they all say the same thing. I love the weather. I just hate how hot it gets. And the biggest stereotype, I'm going to say it, it's a dry heat. And it is so true because you can go anywhere else in the country and their 90-degree days with 40% humidity are miserable. You come to Arizona, it's 110 outside, but the moment you get in your car and you blast your AC for 5 or 10 minutes, you're good. I am personally of the belief I would rather be really hot during the summer and then enjoy a cool winter than have to enjoy the okay summers with all the humidity and then shovel snow. We say down here, you can't shovel sunshine. So it's a great situation. But like I said, a lot of people that go to the university, they do end up staying here because this is a really good environment. You are in the city. You have a hour to 2 hour drive up north, and then you're able to get out of the heat in Flagstaff area. You're about 3 hours away from the border, so if you wanted to go down to Mexico and go to Rocky Point, it's not a far drive for there either. It's a very good central location that offers you a variety of things. So yeah, it's one of the easier and more important selling points for these students and these athletes when you're trying to get them to come to Arizona State is like, we got a little bit of everything. It's a modern city and it's got a really close proximity to cooler weather or a 3 hour drive to California or 4 hour drive to Vegas. If you want to go back to Texas, like there's a little bit of everything that gets offered out here for you. So it is a pretty decent sell to get these kids out here. And then you see a lot of people that stay out here too, just because it's just a jack of all trades. And I am very biased because I've been born and raised in Arizona, but if I can sell anybody on it, absolutely.
All right, now you're going to have to talk to us about the football field, see if you could sell any Fresno State fans about what's happening on the football field. I want to talk about your your true freshman quarterback, Rashada. I got mixed emotions from the media outlets that I listen to. Some people really like him. Some say he needs more time. Obviously, he's going to need more time. What is your feeling about your true freshman quarterback right now?
Yeah, you look at Jaden Rashada, and the first thing that stands out is just the physical attributes and the athleticism that he has. This is a 6'4" quarterback who's able to throw the football 50, 60 yards down the field with ease. It's a flick of his wrist, and he's just able to get that thing to soar. You have the athletic attributes as well, where he could beat you as a runner if he wanted to, but he's definitely more interested in being a pocket passer. But it's just that ability of like, if I want to, I can get out of the pocket and I can either beat you as a runner or we can make those off script plays to be able to get that ball down the field. And he can push the ball. So there's a lot of really good things here. But what some people, and especially the fans, are very guilty of this. What they don't seem to understand is this is a true freshman quarterback. This is a kid who is still learning the next level. Like he played in Pittsburg, California, which is Pittsburg High School of Pittsburg, California, is where he's from. Getting to Arizona State, not that Pittsburgh didn't provide him good competition, but you're at a Power 5 school. This is going to be a step up in competition. There's a lot more talent against USC's and Oklahoma State's and Utah's and Oregon's than there was at the conference that Pittsburgh High School was in. So it's going to be a challenge for him, and he's going to make mistakes, and he's going to sail some balls. He's going to throw some interceptions. He's going to take some sacks. And it feels like this fan base is just, they're wanting the results right now. They want him to instantly be a great quarterback. And that's just not the reality, at least not a fair one. By the end of the year, who knows? Maybe he is a very good quarterback, but we're 2 games into this year and you have such volatile responses from the media, from the fans of Jaden Rashada is the greatest ever and he's just learning to Jaden Rashada is already a bust. It's maddeningly frustrating to have those different sides. And you guys are seeing it from the outside, like just looking and doing your own research. And it's like, wow, there's a lot of toxicity going on. And you'd be absolutely correct because nobody wants to be able to give this kid a chance or everybody's crafting excuses for him. At this point in time, I am very much we're 2 games in, let's give the kid a break kind of thing. But you reassess as time goes on. But that's where I'm at. But you're absolutely correct that it is one side or the other. There appears to be very little middle ground on the opinions of Rashada.
How about
So
this?
at any go ahead.
So if he doesn't perform well game 3, do you sit him and let him redshirt?
The only reason that you would consider sitting him at that point is because Drew Pine is expected to come back, and Pine was a starter for Notre Dame who was able to get the Fighting Irish back on track. They lost to Marshall in South Bend last year. And at that time, Tyler Buckner was the quarterback. They go to Drew Pine and they end up getting to a bowl game. He comes to Arizona State before Rashada had committed, and it appeared that he was going to be the starter. And through training camp, he was probably going to be the starting quarterback for week 1, but then he suffered a slight hamstring strain. That's what it's called. He had a slight strain on his hamstring that knocked him out between 4 to 6 weeks. He could be available this weekend. I don't know if I would bank on it, but there is a chance. He's been practicing and all that. So the only reason to me why you would bench Rashada is if Pine is 100% ready to go, because I think he was going to be the guy. But on the flip side of the coin and playing devil's advocate, no pun intended, for the Sun Devils, you also need to realize that Rashada is your guy of the future. And Kenny Dillingham, right, wrong, or indifferent, is going to have Jaden Rashada tied to his legacy at Arizona State, whether it's 5 years of the program or 20 years of the program. The first thing you're going to think of with Kenny Dillingham is Jaden Rashada. And to me, looking at a season where your own athletic director has taken away your bowl game eligibility, what do you have to lose? Keep that kid out there and let him take some lumps. Let him make mistakes so that next year rolls around and he's better for it. But who knows? Maybe they want to get to 5 or 6 wins in year 1, and Drew Pine would give you the best opportunity. So it's really a lot of give and take with that kind of situation. But yeah, to answer your question, if he does stink this week, you would consider it if Drew Pine is available. If he's not, you're probably staying with Rashada.
Interesting. Yeah, I know that if just following the quarterback situation there's been interesting, especially because a guy coming from Notre Dame who had some success, but obviously there's a reason why he was asked to leave, and they bring in Sam Hartman, and they seem to be doing pretty well this year so far, and also the hotshot 5-star transfer. And you do kind of think that, well, if the season is lost if there's no real prospect for a bowl game, and conference championship's kind of a long shot, why not throw the young guy out there and just let him learn on the job? I think getting live reps is something that we talk about on our show all the time, so I think that does seem like something that's valuable. So transitioning here, what's maybe a position group that's maybe a strength of this Arizona State program that is something to look out for?
The skill positions as a group are very, very good. I will tell you right now, if you guys don't have good corner play, you're going to be in for a long game, because we've got 2 superstar receivers. You have Elijah Badger, who is one of the best kept secrets in the Pac-12. Very quietly had just under 900 yards last year with 2 different quarterbacks and one of the worst offenses in the country. He is in full effect in the first game and a half. He was suspended the first half of the opening game because he absolutely tuned up some Arizona Wildcats in last year's Territorial Cup. So they said, hey, man, you should probably sit the first half, but it was worth it. Now that he's back and in full effect, he is somebody who can do everything. He's a really polished route runner. He's got very good hands. He's got the speed to be able to take the top off the defense, but they have a guy to complement him as well in Xavier Guillory. Guillory is the X factor. Again, no pun intended for Xavier Guillory, but he is probably the true deep threat of this team. And when you've got two guys that are able to stretch the field like that, and you have a guy like Rashada who's got a cannon on his arm, they're going to test you deep. So if you guys don't necessarily have the best corner play, it's going to be a long day. The one thing that can help you out is Rashada's not a consistent deep ball passer just yet. If he takes 5 shots down the field, 2 wide open guys, he's maybe hitting 3 of them, probably closer to 2. Just because he's a freshman, he's still learning it, but they're going to test your secondary. And those are the 2 guys that they're going to look to do it. Number 2 and number 1 are the 2 guys.
Okay. Some of the highlights I watched, you have a massive running back. Edo, what's the full last name? What was that?
Cameron Scadaboo is his name.
Yes. I think that's one name we should watch too. That dude is massive. He's terrifying when he's running the ball. You have multiple running backs though that carried the ball against Oklahoma State, and they were slippery. Talk to us about the running backs. Is that going to be normal? Are we going to see lots of different sets and running plays, different running backs? What is that going to look like?
Oh no, you're going to see a very creative and wide open offense. And one of the things that they've historically liked to do is have 2 running backs, and that's been no different with the first year regime of Kenny Dillingham. They're using Cameron Scadaboo, who was playing at Sacramento State and was the Big Sky Player of the Year last year, in a variety of ways. And while that dude has never missed a cheat day in his life, he can make some moves. He can cut on a dime. He's a lot quicker than you might think he is, and he has a nose for the end zone. He has 2 touchdowns this year. Could have had a third, but there was a holding penalty on the offensive line. They've also got the Carlos Brooks as another very good running back for them. They have gotten very creative with him, and in week 1 against Southern Utah, they actually had them in an I formation, and they had DeCarlos Brooks as the fullback, and they just did 3 straight dives with him, and he was picking up 4, 5, 6 yards, just chunk play after chunk play. So the 2 of them are going to be able to give the Sun Devils a very good run game that's going to be steady enough to open up everything else as well. So looking at the rushing attack, it is going to be a very pivotal part of the Sun Devils offense, and definitely going to have to keep an eye out for Scadaboo, especially number 4 on the offense. He's going to get the ball in more ways than one. He can catch the football, but obviously a very potent runner. And I'll tell you guys right now, we have what we call the Sparky package. It's essentially the Wildcat, but we're not about to call it the Wildcat because of Arizona. So we call it the Sparky package. Like I said, it's a Wildcat. They have Scadaboo taking snaps, and Brooks is lined up next to him, and they pretty much just do dives with it. So it's a physical style game that they like to do when they do run the football. They're going to do their best to absolutely punish the opposing front.
It was scary when I watched against Oklahoma State. It did not look fun, that's for sure. What about on the defensive side of the ball? What would you say the team's strength is on the defensive side?
It's really tough right now because you've just seen a very up and down unit. Going into the year, the secondary was one of the deepest position groups that the team had. And the biggest name there is cornerback number 9, Ro Torrance. Similar to Badger on offense, he is one of the best kept secrets in the Pac-12. He's a massive corner, 6'3", probably closer to 6'4", over 200 pounds. He can mirror and match and flip his hips. He's a very good cover man and typically someone who can erase half the field. He had a very up and down performance against Oklahoma State. It'll be interesting to see if he's able to rebound a little more this week. Very talented guy. They've got some other guys as well, like D. Ford, Jordan Clark, who is the son of Steelers safety Ryan Clark, and definitely plays with a little bit of an edge like his father did. The biggest piece is probably in the pass rush, though. Number 35, BJ Green, has either led the team or tied for the team lead in sacks each of his first 2 years. He had a 2-sack performance last week against Oklahoma State. He's one of those guys where he's like the undersized player that has just got a hot motor, excuse me. He's about 6'1", 250 or so, but he's just so quick and explosive off the snap. And if you're not able to get your hands off him quickly, he's just going to blow right past you. And he's got enough strength too to be able to do a bull rush. He's probably the best player on defense. If Ro Torrance continues to be an up and down player, Jordan Clark obviously very important too. But if your offensive line is another unit that maybe isn't the strongest on the team, number 35 is gonna make life very miserable for your offensive line.
Yeah, offensive line for Fresno State is definitely a question mark, which I did want to ask about the ASU offensive line, because you inherited Fresno State's offensive line coach last year, Coach Tuatelli, this year. So last year wasn't great either with Coach Tuatelli. So I don't know if that is scheme or if that was personnel. But how's the Arizona State offensive line looking with the new offensive line coach Tuatelli?
I think the nicest way I can describe it is it's underwhelming. I have been a very vocal advocate throughout the year that this is probably the weakest component of the team. I am probably public enemy number one of our left tackle, Isaiah Glass. He knows who I am. He does not like me, probably because he's not good at football, but neither here nor there, I suppose. The unit it's a work in progress. I really like the guys. Joey Ramos at right guard is someone I really like. Lee Fontanu at center is definitely an upgrade from what you had last year. But as a whole, this is not a unit that instills a lot of confidence right now, especially with the transition to a new offensive line coach and a new offensive scheme entirely. They also just lost their starting right tackle, Emmett Boley, with a broken leg. He's out for the year. It'll be interesting to see what they do there. I know Matt Ironacre was getting some time. Aaron Frost, who is a transfer from Nevada, I believe, could potentially see some starting time there as well. But it's not a unit that is going to instill a lot of confidence. And that is also kind of a factor in why Rashada has struggled a little bit, is he is getting pressure in his face. So the Sun Devils are just going to have to find a way to be able to scheme a quicker offense, which Kenny Dillingham typically does have an offense where you get the ball out in about 2 seconds, short of those deep passes and whatnot. But that's going to have to be your game plan moving forward. Now that you're starting to get into better competition, Oklahoma State was the first step towards that. Fresno State is going to be a challenge as well. And then after that, you're playing Pac-12 football the rest of the year. So they're going to need to get this unit. They need to get their confidence up and get them moving forward and get everything kind of established. When you lose a starting tackle, you got to get that figured out very, very quickly. But this is not a unit that I am very high on. And if the Bulldogs are able to generate a good enough pass rush, it's going to hamper this offense quite a bit.
Okay. It's going to be another battle of the trenches, what it sounds like. Now, if you need to ask questions about Fresno State, please feel free. But what does Arizona State need to take advantage of to win this game? So if I told you Arizona State won the game, what did that look like? What did they do to win?
The biggest thing is they would need Jaden Rashada to play a clean game. He only has 1 interception in 2 games. He doesn't take too many chances. Right now, it's just the touch on the ball's not quite there, is what has led to a lot of his incompletions. It's not like he's taken too many risks or anything like that. He is playing smart. He's standing tall in the pocket, so he's trying to minimize the risk of being a runner and taking those hits. To win this game, he's just going to have to play a really clean slate of football and not turn the ball over and not take too many sacks and be able to connect on those deep balls. If he is able to get the deep passing game going, that's going to open everything else up underneath. And he's also going to need to rely on the running backs with the Carlos Brooks and Cameron Scadaboo, and if they incorporate anyone else, to be able to get that moving as well. Defensively, they're just going to have to establish their pass rush. Last year, the whole year, I think they had 17 sacks in 12 games. This year, they had 3 sacks last week against Oklahoma State. They all came in the first half, and they didn't get any sacks against Southern Utah. So they've got to find a way to be able to generate that pass rush. I believe in BJ Green, but you need some other guys to step up as well. You've got Deshaun Mallory, who transferred from Michigan State. He's been a very good run defender. Hopefully you can get some sacks out of him. Clayton Smith is a former 5-star kid from the Sooners program when he transferred to us from Oklahoma. He's a physical freak. He had a sack last week that ended up getting taken away from an illegal contact. But if him and BJ are able to get going as the duo edge rushers that they are, they're going to be able to really make life, as I said, miserable for the quarterback is Mikey.
Keen.
I can't remember his last name.
Keen.
Mikey Keen. Yes. And at least from what I have seen, he looks pretty good. So if they're able to get him thrown off his game, they're going to have a chance here. So they need Jaden Rashada to play clean football on the offensive side, and defensively, they're just going to need to generate pressure because they have a secondary that can capitalize on bad passes and mistakes, but it's a matter of getting home because coverage can only hold up for so long, as you guys know, if the pass rush isn't getting there.
So after I usually ask, what did Fresno State do if they won? I'm just going to assume that it's the opposite of what you just said. Is that fair?
Yeah. So if Fresno State is to win this game, offensively, they're just going to need to be able to beat a Sun Devils team that if they can't get the pass rush, coverage only holds up for so long. And the Sun Devils have been susceptible to a few big plays this year. And if that's the case, then, you know, Mikey Keen is going to be able to have those 30-yard passes, those 40-yard passes, and they are able to generate some good chunk run plays. Like the offense is going to be able to find success if ASU's pass rush isn't there. And once that starts to happen, you're going to put ASU in a hole. And they really struggled to make adjustments last week against Oklahoma State. And if they struggle to do that again, they're just not going to be able to keep up. So I think the biggest key for Fresno State is to capitalize on your early drives and try to build up points, whether that's field goals or touchdowns, and just start to stack your points and get the most out of your drives. If you're getting 3 and outs, the Sun Devils are going to be able to capitalize on that. But if you keep stacking points and start forcing the Sun Devils to get out of their game plan, I mean, this is the case for most teams, but especially for a new regime and a freshman quarterback, I don't know if they're going to be able to overcome a 3-possession deficit. You know, if Fresno State gets up 17-0 at some point or 21-0, I would tell you ASU's chances are under 10% to win that game at that point. It is so pivotal that the Sun Devils are going to be able to go blow for blow. But if you guys get an early lead, and if your defense is able to make enough plays, get that crucial sack on 3rd down, break up that pass on a deep ball, get that tackle in the backfield on Cameron Scadaboo, get those kind of plays, be able to get ASU's offense off the field, tire out the defense. That's probably the game plan, is keep the offense out, because that defense, while it is quality and very well coached, they get tired. You guys know this. It's just fatigue. It catches up with you at some point. So long sustained drives are going to be the key for Fresno State. Tire out that defense and force the offense to get uncomfortable. That's your key to success right there.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, something that has been a very large issue for Fresno State so far this season has been the punting game. And so, we've found this team tends to start slow, and our punter is not able to flip the field. So you pointing out 3 and outs, that is like a worst case scenario for Fresno State, because we have just been giving the opponent really good field position when we're punting from our own territory. So yeah, if the Sun Devils are able to lock it down early, I think that they could be in some advantageous situations.
So what you're saying is there's a chance.
Oh yeah.
Oh, and we lost Nail again. So Nail lives out in the boonies, and so he has what we refer to as Group of Five Wi-Fi, because he it tends to go out in important moments like this. This is actually time number 2 on this recording, which is impressive. So he's probably still talking and doesn't know that he's frozen. So I'll just go ahead and kind of move on here without him. So we've kind of gone through strengths and weaknesses, and what. Could be differences for each of these teams. But are you allowed to make a prediction of a score, or are you supposed to be?
No, I totally can.
Okay.
I have not put too much thought into this just yet because I haven't done all my research. I typically on Locked On Sun Devils have like my Thursday, Friday episodes are starting to preview the game and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Just off the top of my head, oh man. The defense really has played pretty good football. It's just they get tired because the offense has 3 and outs. I think I'm taking Fresno State in this game. Off the top of my head, I'll go 27-17 would be my score prediction. But I am still taking Fresno State in this game. You guys have instilled a little bit of confidence that maybe we'll have a chance. They showed that against Oklahoma State, that this is a team that can compete and go blow for blow, but they're not a 60-minute team right now. And if that's the case, then I don't have a lot of faith in them to win a lot of football games.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think before last week, we were very optimistic, especially coming off a big win against Purdue. That was huge for like morale. And but last week, thankfully, our game against FCS opponent Eastern Washington was not nationally televised because it was a gross game. Fresno State was uninspired and had to win it in double overtime. So coming off of last week, I was not feeling I'm not feeling as confident as it was after week 1. But I mean, I do think that Fresno State has a very experienced coaching staff and Coach Jeff Tedford. And, we do think actually our strongest position group that Caleb and I both like is actually our corners. That's probably our best defensive players are our 2 starting corners. So overall, I do think that Fresno State can put together a game. And yeah, scoring wise, I'm not really sure where to go because, we kind of expected game 1 against Purdue to be low scoring, kind of slug it out, and it ended up being, 39-35, kind of high scoring game. So I was kind of, thinking, I think Fresno State needs to score 30 points just because I don't know how well the defense is going to be able to hold up. But I do think this is going to be a Fresno State victory. I do think it's going to be close. I'm saying probably 31-28 would be my prediction for where we are at the end of Saturday night late. So, but I do think it's going to be close, and I think that it should be a really competitive game, which I think everyone, at least in Fresno, is looking forward to.
Yeah, I think that's pretty spot on. If Arizona State is able to get to 28 points, that's a huge. So I'll preface it with this. I am not a moral victory guy. To me, a loss is a loss. But to the people who do count those, you put up 28 points, like you're predicting, like getting 3 touchdowns in general, that is really good progress. And that's what you want to see, even if you're not necessarily winning games. I don't think this year for the Sun Devils is if we don't have X amount of wins, it's a failure of a season. I think what you want to see is just steps being taken forward. So if they're able to stay competitive with Fresno State, I'm really happy. If they win, obviously I'm ecstatic. If they lose by 30, not that happy. But if they can keep it within 2 possessions, that's a win for me. But I would be remiss if I did not mention Jalen Conyers, our tight end, number 12. You got to find a way to stop him.
Okay.
He is certifiably one of the best tight ends in the nation. And a lot of people are starting to talk about him a little bit. He's had a slow start to the year, but at 6'4", 260, that dude moves like a ballerina. And he can make unreal catches. Where Badger and Guillory are so good at stretching the field as receivers, Conyers does everything underneath. He does the dirty work. He is going to be one of the biggest X factors for this game for the Sun Devils. And if you haven't watched him, you should watch him because he's a lot of fun to watch for someone that's as big as he is.